everyone, it's Ashley and I'm back with a video today to teach you how you can customize Dollar Tree items for children. So this is a fun video for taking a bunch of cute things from Dollar Tree and having a great time customizing them. You could literally walk around Dollar Tree and find so many different items to customize, and the process is the same for all of these. So it's really simple. Once you know the process, you can just go through Dollar Tree and have the best time selecting different things. If you haven't yet, click subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos, and let's get to it. For this project, we're going to use the Cricut Joy. You can totally use the Explorer 2 or the Maker for this project as well. I'm going to use a pair of scissors, a Cricut scraper tool, one of the Dollar Tree pen/pencil pouches. These are super cute. This one's kind of a 3D effect. I'm also going to be using transfer tape and some of the Cricut Smart Vinyl in permanent. This is really pretty. It's a kind of like a holographic metallic, and this has been waiting for a project, and I thought this would be perfect since there's little accents of gold in here. Let's just go completely extra with this one, and this would be a fun one for kids for all of their school supplies, so I figured that would be a great one to try. We're going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to personalize it with a name, so I'm going to go into the canvas here. So we're at the canvas screen on mobile, and what we'll do is select the text that we're going to use. So we're going to go to the bottom corner here where it says text. It's the second one in. And remember, if you're using it on the computer, it'll be on this side on the left. So we'll select text. Let's pick out a really cute font for this one. And we have to also keep in mind what this bag looks like. I don't want to go super complicated with a lot of details with the font because this is such a detailed object, and I'm using something that's got a lot of details to it. So let's keep the font kind of simple. I'm going to use the font Carly. It'll ask us to enter in the text. So I'm going to enter in Catherine. And that one is super cute. If we want to play around with the sizing, let's actually take a look first and figure out exactly what size we need this to be. So this is approximately 8 inches in length, and this section here is the part that we're going to be adding the vinyl to. So this is approximately, I would say, 3.5 inches, but I don't want to go that large. So up to 8 inches, up to 3.5 inches. I want to keep this reasonably smaller. We have our font here. What we can do is we can select it, we can drag it around if we want to. You can adjust the sizing by going to the bottom where it says edit, and then you can scroll through here and adjust the sizing that way, or you can just click on it and drag and click and it'll tell you the dimensions of it. So I don't want to make this up to the 8 inches, so I'm thinking probably closer to 6.5 is pretty good. So I'm going to make that there. Let's go to the bottom where it says make it. We're going to make this without a mat because we're using Cricut Smart Materials. If you were doing something that was a script font, you'll always want to make sure that you weld it, but because this isn't a script font, it's great as is and we don't have to worry about that. So this will tell us we're cutting without a mat. We need up to 8 inches of material. So I'll make sure we have enough material. We do. Just barely. This is the perfect amount for this one. We're going to select continue, pair the joy, and then we'll be selecting which material that we're using. So we're using the Cricut Smart Vinyl in permanent. We're going to load our tools into the machine, which it's ready to go. This is the fine point blade, and then we'll load our material. We'll load our material into the machine. And we'll select go. Now let's unload our material. We're going to cut away the extra material that we aren't using for this project. You can save this for something else, and even though it's no longer sized for using in the Joy, you can put this on top of the Joy mat or one of the other mats and use it for another project. So let's lead our project. What we're going to do is start in the corner here. And we're just going to peel away from our design. Because we're using a holographic foil, this is going to have a little bit more stiffness in the material, so just work a little more slowly with it. So we still have some letters to remove here. We'll just roll our sheet for our backing and it'll help us release those little sections there. So now this is ready to go. We can take some transfer tape and cut this to the right size that we need to transfer our decal. We'll take the backing off of our transfer tape. So we'll just peel this away. So you'll see there's a grid over the top of this right here, the transfer tape. We're going to hold both sides to have a little bit more control and just move down the middle slightly and roll this out to the sides. This is where we're going to use our scraper tool here. And we're going to go along this. We're trying to avoid any air bubbles, so make sure that you start out from the middle and you work your way out. If there's any air bubbles, make sure that you press them out towards the edges so that way they don't stay inside your decal. And any type of spots where you have little flourishes or little dots, always go back over those because those are the most likely to not come up with your transfer tape. When you're ready, you can flip this over and you can do the same thing to the back of this, and it just makes sure that your decal transfers as cleanly as possible. Now we're ready to remove the backing paper, so just peel up from the corner. If you notice it's not sticking in any place, you can always push this back down and go back over it again. So that's just something to keep in mind. We're going to lightly roll this, keeping our transfer held down. We'll just roll this away from it. We're keeping an eye out. It did look like everything's made it so far. So here is the sticky side, and that's what the top looks like. Now we're ready to apply this to our project. So we'll take our little bag here, and we will use our rulers on the mat here. You can kind of center it, and that way you can get a visual representation of where the center of your project is. So the center of my project, according to the rulers, is right here. So I'm going to keep that in mind and apply this in the center there. So we're going to just center this, and what I like to do when I'm doing something that's kind of a longer decal is I will just start from the middle where the center is and make sure that I place that down first, and then I can place down the other pieces. And what we can do is go back over this with our scraper tool. If this was fabric, I would have used something like iron-on or infusible ink. However, because this is a plastic coating on the top, this is why I used permanent vinyl as the adhesive here. We're just following the same steps as before. We're using our mini scraper tool to remove any air bubbles and to press this down firmly. And when you're ready, you can take a corner from your design here and where your transfer tape starts, and then just peel this up slowly. It's going to want to stick pretty hard because this is a plastic backing, so just hold down your project firmly near your transfer tape, and you can kind of rock your transfer tape back and forth, and it helps release it a little bit easier. Okay, there's a little piece still left up here. Okay. So just make sure you cut off your tag. And now this one is ready to gift. You can go ahead and set that up as a cute little gift idea. Let's talk about what supplies you'll need for this project. This is a pretty easy one, and it's one that I think everybody can use. Particularly, we're all working from home or kids are going to school at home. So it's really handy to have some of the Dollar Tree mini trash cans. And this is really, really easy. Dollar Tree carries these pretty often around school time. And there's different color ranges as well, so you can personalize them to each person or each kid. You'll want Cricut transfer tape, a pair of scissors, a scraper tool, which I have off screen, a roll of permanent vinyl, and you probably won't even use very much of the permanent vinyl, and your Cricut machine. This project can be made on any of the Cricut machines, the Maker, the Explorer 2, or the Joy. I'm just choosing the Joy for this one so I can walk you through it. So let's get to the design process. Usually I show you this on the desktop, but today I'm going to show you this on a mobile device. That way, if you're following along and you're using a mobile device, it'll be easy for you too. So I'm using my mobile device here. I'm going to select New Project. We're logged into Cricut Design Space. And this will take us to our canvas, and all of our options are along the bottom for designing. So I want to select something for this, and so what I'm going to do is keep in mind the sizing of it first. So I'm going to put this down on the mat and get an idea of the sizing. So this is approximately 6 inches total in length, but I would cut this down just a little bit. So this is probably going to be more like 5 inches, 4.5 inches that we're going to use long. Because the bottom here is more narrow, I'm going to measure that. That's probably about 2 inches. So I don't want to go any longer than, I would say, 4.5, 5 inches by 2 inches. And that's going to be for both decals. Since there's a decal on the front already as part of the trash can, I wanted to put it on the side. I think that would look nicer to personalize there. In Design Space, I want to add the name of the person that's receiving it. So I'm going to go to the bottom here, and there's image, so you could add an image to what you're working on. There's text, shapes, upload, actions, edit, sync, layers, undo, redo, and settings. We're going to select text, which is the second option there. We can check through the fonts and figure out a font that looks cute with it. So I'm going to choose something like pen and ink. In the bottom, you can enter the text that you want to write. So I'm going to write my daughter's name first. So you can play around with different fonts. Some are Cricut Access only, some are Cricut Premium, and some are free on the system. So you can play around, figure out which one looks the best for your project. I'm going to select the font that I'm using here, and this is my daughter's name. So I'm going to take the right corner here, drag the size, and make it larger. I'm also going to make this a lot larger to work with by pinching the screen here, and that makes the mat larger, so that way I have a lot more room to work with. Whenever you're doing something that will require welding later, it's nice to blow up the sizing on it, and that way you can make sure you get the best result. So this is all grouped together, but it looks kind of awkward for the spacing, right? So I'm going to walk you through how to fix that. So we're going to go to the bottom here, and if you go into where it says Actions, you select Actions, it will let you ungroup. Ungroup means to separate into single spacing. So there's one item, there's another item. Now let's adjust how this looks. So we're going to take our first item here. We'll use the ruler along the mat. That way we get the best result here. And we'll drag our letters over to where we think looks the nicest. So there is that. And as you notice, I'm connecting them where there's the little connection points there. And there might be some points where it will overlap, and that's great because we are going to be able to weld everything together so that way we get the best result and it'll look handwritten. Because ideally that's what we're going for, is a handwritten result. So let me move this up just slightly. And I really love how this font looks kind of older. So we have everything where it will connect. If we tried to make this now as is, if you went to the bottom and you clicked make it, it would still cut, we'll say without the mat, it would still cut all the letters individually. Do you see how it does that? So let's go back. We don't want that to happen. We want it to look exactly like this. So we're going to draw a box around it, and then we're good there. We'll go to the bottom where it says actions, and then we will click, you can click attach if you wanted to keep it in the same position. You click weld if you want it to all become one piece. So I'm clicking weld so that this becomes one piece. Now we have our item and we can resize it to whatever we need it to be. So this is awesome. If you're having problems when you weld it that it looks like it closed off some of the letters, sometimes it will fill in the gap. What you can do is just hit the undo button here, and then you can go in and resize this larger and then hit weld. It's a good fix for it. If you're welding and anything fills in, just resize the item bigger, and you can go back and size it to a more normal size later. So we have that, and now let's work on the sizing for this. So remember that we're not going any larger than the 2-inch mark to the up to 5-inch mark. So I want to keep it within that size range. So to size this, there are two different ways. You can go to the edit section here where it says edit on the bottom, and you can adjust the sizing down here, or you can drag and click from the corner and it will tell you the sizing up here, which is great. So that's another way to do it. If you're following along and using a desktop computer, you'll find all the options for sizing on the top of the screen. So that's something to keep in mind. All the toolbars will be laid out differently on the desktop computer. It will be on the left side and the top and the bottom here. So this is slightly different. It's a little more complicated when you're using a mobile or tablet device. So that's why I like to show you guys, if I can, using the mobile as well. So let's adjust the sizing from the corner here, and we'll keep a look at what size it is. So I want to make this, it's already within that height range right there around the 2-inch mark. I want to make this probably closer to 4.75, 4.8, somewhere around there. I don't want to make this too large. So right there looks good. That one's ready to go. So we can just take this one and move that over. We're not working on that one anymore. Now we're going to work on one for my son. So I'm going to choose on the bottom here, text. And remember, if you're using a computer, you'll use on the left side, it'll have a section where you can select text. So we'll select text, and we'll go through again and choose a text that we like for that one. I think for this one, I'll choose Pendry Script Standard. And then I'll type in the text. So we're going to enter his name. His name is William. And let's work on the sizing for this one. This one is pre-sized because this is not a cursive font. This one is pre-sized for the letter spacing on there. You can always adjust the letter spacing if you go into edit, and then you can go in and select the sizing, how you want this arranged, and the spacing and all of that. So I'm going to adjust this to fit the sizing here. So I'm just dragging and clicking on the bottom right corner here. So let's see, we want this under right around that mark, maybe a little smaller. About 4.75 is the sizing I'm going for. I think I might have to go in just to make this a little easier for myself and go into size. So width and height. Width will go 4.75, and then click done. So 4.75, and now this is adjusted correctly. So I have both of these created. What we'll do is we'll go to the bottom here and click make it. It's going to load us to the page here. Because we're using the Cricut Joy, it's going to ask us, are we using a mat, without a mat, on a mat, or on a card mat? Because we're using Smart Vinyl is without a mat, so we'll select without a mat. It'll show us how it's going to be arranged. It'll tell us exactly how much material is required. We don't need to mirror since this is going to be something that's going straight onto the project and doesn't require heat. We'll click continue. It's going to pair to our machine. Then we're going to set our material. We're using Smart Vinyl and Permanent. We're going to load our tools and materials, so make sure we have the fine point blade installed, which we do. If you haven't seen the fine point blade for the Joy, it's super tiny, so you just install that into there. This will be the fine point blade for any machine as well. And now we're ready to go. All we have to do is load in our materials. So let's get our material ready. The neat thing about using the Smart materials is you don't have to cut it to size. You can use a full roll and just roll in and it'll figure out how much it needs. We're going to select go when we're ready. Now we're ready to unload. Select the unload button. And we can cut off the remaining vinyl here and use this for a different project. So I'm just going to select the area that has been cut. And we'll store this for another project later. Let's take a look at removing the excess vinyl from the design. I'm just cutting between the two names, and that way it makes it easier to remove everything. So here's the first one. We'll start with removing the vinyl from it. So we're going to peel from the corner, and then you're just going to slowly peel away from the word or the name that you're using. This one's a little bit harder to see since I'm using white for this example, but it turns out really neat. It's a neat contrast between the Dollar Tree item as well. So I'm just removing the extra vinyl from this design. Let's make sure to go in wherever, you may be able to see this with the light hitting it, wherever there are spaces in between, say for letters like A or E, make sure you remove the vinyl that's in between so you don't have any left behind inside the letters. This one is ready to go. Let's go ahead and weed the next one. Now that we have both designs weeded, and you hopefully can see it, I know there's not much contrast on the white. I'll use different colors on the next example, but we're going to take our transfer tape and cut a section to fit the size that we're working with here. So I'm going to take this and just match the size. Because transfer tape is reusable, the nice thing is we can use this for both words here, and that way we get extra use out of this. You're going to take the transfer tape and peel it away from the backing. And when we're ready to apply it to our design here, hold your design down, and then you'll take your transfer tape and create a V shape and place the V directly in the center. And then you can slightly roll it to the outsides. Now we're going to use our mini scraper tool, and we'll just push down on this. What we're doing is we're working generally starting from the center and pressing any air bubbles out towards the sides. And we're trying to do something that's called burnishing, which is we're trying to attach the vinyl to the sticker tape on the top here. So we're just going to go over this completely. Multiple times in different directions. Take care whenever there are letters with little dots that you go over those dots as well. Any areas that could come off and not transfer correctly. When you're done with this, you can flip this over and repeat the process on the other side. This is a great tip to use, especially when you're using the smart vinyl, because it has a thicker backing. This makes it easier for it to transfer. When you're ready, you can go to one of the corners and peel back. Keep an eye out for your decal. If it's still on the backing here, make sure that you press this back down and you continue the process. But we'll just keep an eye out, and also always double check for these small dots or any small things that might get lost. Okay. So we'll take our decal and we'll line it up to where it's going to look the best here. Usually I start with the center and I roll outwards, but I think this is going to be easier to line this up with the outside and then apply it all the way down for the rest of this. So I'm going to have this start here on this side and then just roll this along to here. And now we can take our mini scraper tool and make sure this is adhered by going over it carefully. Okay, now we're ready to remove the transfer tape. What you can do is start at a corner and start peeling it back. If you see any of the little flourishes or any of the dots aren't completely adhered, lay back the transfer tape and continue to adhere it, but we're just going to remove this. So something like this with all of these flourishes and details will take you longer to adhere, so it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so this one is ready to go. Let's work on the next one. So this design's already been weeded as well. We're going to take our transfer tape that we just used and we're going to apply it over to the top. And we'll finish this doing the exact same thing as the other one, which is just to make sure that this is sticking to the transfer tape. You flip that over, you can see his name. Very cool. Now we're going to take our little mini trash can and we'll add this right in the same region here. Okay, here's a common problem you will run into when you're removing something like the dots and eyes. It's very common for everything else to transfer, but not the dots. So go back down, lay it down, and go over it again, especially in those sections. And now it should adhere. And that one's ready to go. Let's talk about what supplies you'll need for this project. We're going to be personalizing one of the Dollar Tree pencil holders. This is great for holding pens or pencils, and they have a ton of different styles. I just thought this one was super cute. You'll need some scissors, a pencil holder from Dollar Tree, a Cricut mini scraper, some permanent vinyl. We're using the Cricut Joy today, so I'm using the Smart Vinyl in permanent. If you don't have a Cricut Joy and you have an Explorer Air 2 or Maker, you can do the same process as well. And that's all you'll need to get started for this. So it's a very quick and easy project. Let me walk you through the design process. So we're inside Cricut Design Space. I'm going to show you how this works on a mobile device. If you're following along and using a computer, you can use the toolbars on the left side of the screen, the top, and the right side of the screen. For mobile devices such as phones and tablets, all of the options are along the bottom here. We're going to go to where it says text and select that. If you're using a computer, it'll be on the left side here. So we'll select text. Now we can scroll through all of the different options for text. Because we're doing kind of a child project here, I want to make sure that I pick a font that would look cute with that. So let's just scroll through here. And this is a great way to really experiment and have fun with the different fonts. So frogs and snails look super cute for something that's for children, especially. So what you can do is enter in a name. So I'll enter a name in here. And then once it's clicked in, you can choose this. If you want to make sure that you're adjusting letter spacing, you can do all the adjustments to how it looks underneath edit here. You can choose all the different sizing for the fonts, the letter spacing, the line spacing. You can adjust the color as well under here. So there's a ton of options there. For this, what we're going to do is we select we select it with our finger. We can adjust the sizing two ways. One is we go under edit and we scroll to the right and you can adjust the sizing, width, and height. The other is using your finger. You tap on the item and then you can choose the right hand corner and adjust the sizing that way. So let's take a look at our little box here and figure out the sizing on this one. I'm using my Cricut mat just so that I have a better example of the sizing. So it is approximately, I would say, a little bit over 7 inches, probably close to 7.5 inches in length and probably closer to 1.5 inches in height. So I don't want it to go any taller than the 1.5 inch. So let's go ahead and select this. And I'm going to adjust the spacing. You can see the spacing on the corner here. So it needs to be smaller than 1.5 inches. I want to have a little bit of extra space. So I think 1.35 is pretty good there. That one's ready to go. So we're going to select Make It. Because I'm using the Cricut Joy, it will ask me how I'm loading the material. If you're using the Maker or the Explorer 2, it won't ask you this because you're always going to use a mat. So I'm going to select without a mat since I'm using Cricut Smart Materials. If you're using the Maker or the Explorer 2, you're going to be using the green mat and you'll be using permanent vinyl for this. So this tells you we're using without a mat because it's a smart material. And then the length that we need and the mirroring is off. You only turn mirroring on if you're using something like heat to apply it. So that would be something for iron-on or infusible ink. So let's select Continue. It's going to pair our device and then it'll ask us which material we're using. We're using Smart Vinyl in Permanent. We're going to make sure that we load our blade. So we have the blade. This is the 5-point blade. You'll be using the 5-point blade on any of the machines as well. And then we'll load our material when ready. So this is the material I'm using. I think that's super cute. It matches really well with the colors here. And all I'm going to do is load this directly in. So it shows loading. Now we'll select Go when we're ready. This is ready to go, so we can select Unload. And now we can close the door on this one. And let's work on cutting the excess material away from this so I can show you how to weed it. So here is our roll. The neat thing about when you're doing a project like this is you don't have to use that much material. So it's a great, inexpensive project. You buy your materials on clearance. You can use my coupon code in the description box below, and that way you can save a little bit of extra. I am a Cricut product expert, so my links are affiliate, but it supports my work at no extra cost. So let's go ahead and remove the vinyl from the design. We'll start in the corner here. And we're going to peel this away from our design. Just peel it away slowly. I really love this font. It is super cute, very childlike. Okay. And as you can see, there are still the little pieces of vinyl inside the letters here. So I'm just going to roll this with my finger. It should pop up a little section there. This is where you can break out your weeding tools if you would like. I tend to weed by hand. unless it's a lot of small pieces. Then I will break out the weeding tools. Okay, so that is ready to go. The next step is to take our transfer tape. And transfer tape is a clear sticky material that you can use to transfer the design from the backing to your item. So that's what we're using the transfer tape for. I'm going to take my transfer tape and make sure that I cut a piece that matches this. In fact, I think I'll use this piece along the bottom here. And just cut that. We'll peel the transfer tape from the backing, so we'll just peel that back here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take our project here, we'll take our transfer tape. I like to make a V shape so I have more control over where it lands on here. And then I just hold down my decal and I place this directly over the center. And then I roll it out to the sides. This is where you're going to break out your mini scraper tool, and we're going to go over this to avoid any air bubbles or any problems with that. So let's just go over this. If you see any air bubbles, press them out towards the edges of your design and they will come out that way. That's the easiest way to do it. So if you saw an air bubble, say in here, you could go back over it and just push it out towards the side. Let me go a little closer so you guys can see. So I usually start in the middle here, and then I just press out towards the edges. Don't press super hard. What we're trying to do is just make sure that this adheres without a ton of pressure, just mostly movement to make sure it's adhering. If this had something like dots or little flourishes or anything that's kind of small, you would want to go over those sections more just to make sure that they transfer correctly. Anytime you have something like an eye with a little dot, go over that section more. We finished that side, so what we're going to do is flip this right over. Whenever you're working on a decal and you want to make sure that it's going to adhere to the transfer tape, you can flip it over, and that's just a trick that I use. And then I go back over the backing as well. And it's just another way to make sure that this is adhering correctly. When you're ready, you'll remove the backing. If you notice it's not transferring at all, what you can do is place this back down and continue working on it again, but this is doing well. And now that decal is ready to be transferred, let's bring over our little project here. Something you can do is, this is a great time to use your mat. If you have a Cricut mat, you can center this in here, and then that way you can kind of center your design a little bit more easily. So I'm going to go over and just kind of hold this over where it's going to look the nicest, and I'm going to apply it starting from one direction here on the bottom, and then I'm just going to roll it towards the top. We're going to follow the same steps as we did before, which is just to adhere it using our scraper tool. Try to avoid any air bubbles. Since this is permanent, you definitely have to keep an eye out for air bubbles. When you're ready, you can take the corner of the transfer tape and just roll it. If it's not adhered, lay it back down and continue working on it. And the neat thing about using Cricut transfer tape is you can reuse it. So save this piece and you can use it for multiple projects. It's great if you're doing a ton of different things, and that way you have the most use out of your materials. So this one is ready to go. And if you see any little air bubbles, just make sure you can still go back over them and you can just press them out using your tool. Just press towards the edges. So just something to keep in mind. Which one was your favorite project? Leave a comment below and let me know. I'm always curious to see which ones you think you would get the most use out of. For me, I think the little mini trash cans are going to be super handy. Our kids always have little pieces of trash or random stuff on their desk that needs to get thrown away, so it's a great reminder. Or you could totally use those to hold things like pencils and pens, so a great way to keep your desk organized. So that's my favorite for sure. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content, and there's always a ton going on. I have a bunch of DIYs coming up for December, so if you haven't yet, make sure to like as well. I will see you guys later, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.